Jeff Gabriel connection.
Jenn Acosta, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you, Jeff?
Good. Thanks for being here today. Jenn is a life coach, career coach, wealth coach, and predominantly an advisor to women looking to make a shift, or they've made a shift in their life and making shifts in their life, and they're looking for some assistance and guidance and some expertise, sharing the experience along the way. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why do you call yourself the quantum? Is that correct? The quantum coach?
Yeah. That's a good question. That's my handle on Instagram and TikTok, actually. One of the reasons is because a lot of what I do, Jeff, is to I studied a lot about energy for a long time in my life. Before I became a coach, I was massage therapist / energy work. I worked a lot with my hands, and a lot of what I do is I help people to get out of their heads and more, everything is all energy. We can go down that road if we want, but the brief synopsis is everything is energy. And I think way too many people are trying to figure out life up here, when really it's about dropping down into your energy and kind of finding your flow and purpose for why you're here and all that stuff. And so quantum is really like thinking outside the box. It's multiple possibilities, not just what we see right here in front of us. That's the short version.
Would you say a correct analysis of what you just said would be, dropping down into your gut, into your diaphragm to make your decisions there, instead of letting all the sort of the peripheral mental noise around you, all the comparisons, all the ranking that we do, all the pressures that we feel from social media, to guide you to more hone in on yourself a bit and to believe, to find that, that core energy. Would that be a correct assumption?
Oh my gosh, you nailed it. Totally. There are a lot of coaches out there, and there's a lot of strategies, and they're all great and they're all necessary, I think. And it's amazing to have tools. And really the heart of my coaching is, it's not really about the strategy or the tool. It's really about your energy. And it's really about exactly what you said, that intuition, your gut, your heart, is actually a business tool. It is, I can't tell you how many clients, customers, business I've done just by following the flow, whether that's self-care or whether that's getting a hit to I should have a conversation with that person, or I need to call that person. And that's not a strategy. It's really, it is an intuitive, and to me, that's how I build my business and how I teach people to build their businesses as well. It's not, we see a lot about the hustle culture. Go, work. Don't give, not 14-hour days. Don't, sacrifice. And I am not about that at all. I am all about, yes, you're going to work hard. There's seasons of working hard. There's seasons of really challenging yourself. But overall, this is not about hustle. This is about actually being in alignment, in the flow, and open to really limitless possibilities, all the time. And being able to have, really attract things to you, if you will.
Right. Well, I think, one of the hardest things with people, and I'll use myself as an example, when I have a couple of businesses that I started, and I started them a little bit later in life from a job that I was working in my late 20s. And one of the hardest things was to find, not only find the passion, but be able to find the focus and to hone in, to believe, to calm myself down enough to be able to work towards those goals. And once I was able to get into it and start applying myself towards those goals, some of the things that you mentioned, things started getting attracted to you, because you're putting out energy and you're taking steps every day. My point is, I think most people have a hard time getting to that starting line because they're so overwhelmed by, can I do it? All the noise, am I good enough? all that crap that hopefully dissipates later in life as we get more experience. But I think that was a theme in me. And I think it's a main theme in a lot of people that are just trying to start something or drive forward. And a lot of this self-help gears towards it, but not necessarily, I don't know, addresses the right way to make people understand. And it sounds like you're addressing that, which is really cool.
Yeah. And exactly what you said is that I think that there's a lot of strategy and structure out there, and what's missing in the self-development world that I think is now we're seeing more of it, but for a long time there was not. It more about exactly that, just being able to follow the flow, being able to live your purpose. And that doesn't mean work hard and sacrifice. That actually means simply living in line with why we're here. And when I think what I've seen over and over is when we do that, actually life starts to unfold for us. You know, like, again, we can go down little rabbit holes, but people come to me, they want to make more money and they think it's about the money. It's not about the money. It's never about the money. To me, in my experience, it's about like looking at, yes, your past history with money, and we can unpack that. But really, it's about, are you speaking when you need to speak? Are you in action with what you need to be doing? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you expressing yourself? Like all those other areas, right?
Right. No, I think you're spot on. I think when people look out into the social media world of self-help, they're always hearing from these extremely successful people, you know.
Yeah.
Elon Musk wakes up at 5 o'clock every day, and Jeff Bezos works from 3 a.m. to 2, and Jack Dorsey takes cold baths and intermittently fasts every day. And like, before even people can get a chance, just get to know themselves, to get at the start of the line, they're already comparing themselves to these grandiose things instead of these intermediary energetic steps that I think is really important, you know, that you're mentioning. I think you really got to like go in micro and almost make it. I mean, I know there's some complexity to what you're saying, but also bring it down into a more simplistic, fundamental, like, listen, you just got to get up and you got to put one foot in front of the other towards your project every day. And then you have your way of presenting that in a way that's very unique. But I think that's the most, to me, that was the most important thing, was very, very simplistic moves to start the energy in the right direction. And it sounds like that you work with a lot of people to do that, and that's cool. I think that's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly what you're saying. It has to be the simpler it is, the more access we'll have to it. And just to kind of close the circle on what you said there, that there's also what I talk about in my business and with my clients is there's also seasons, right? So there will be seasons of more grind and more hustle, but they're also just like everything in nature. So everybody has seen The Secret now. You've read the book, you've seen it on Netflix, whatever. And so everyone knows about this law of attraction, right? And it is a real thing. But what they don't realize is that there are so many other laws as well as the law of attraction. And one of them is the law of seasons. And what that really just means, very simply, is that we're not always going to be in harvest season. There is a season to sow. There is a season to reap. There is a season to rest. There is a season to be playing really hard, you know? And so I think that's more what we're moving into, instead of the old paradigm of hustle, grind, go, sacrifice, you know, burnout. I think really what entrepreneurs and people that are creating anything, that we're moving into a time where the energy matters and all that. And so it's like we have to find the ways to flow, and that on any project and any area of life, sometimes there's going to be times where you're all in and it's all going, and then sometimes you have to step back. And so it's a little bit of a dance. And to me, that's, you know, everyone's trying to get somewhere. They have that, whatever it is, 6-figure, 7-figure goal, whatever that goal is. But I always feel like, what's the point of getting there if you're miserable, sick, and burnt out once you're
Right.
there, right? So much of
Well,
this is about the journey, you know?
right. Well, it's when you talk about the seasons, if I can just reinterpret that a little bit, it's a sort of a 3-step forward, 2-step back issue. And I think that we always look to the goal line in our mind of getting to this, fantastical place. And I think people want to get to that place because they're constantly comparing and constantly ranking. And especially now with the social media input in their minds, that's an incredible negative influence and doesn't give you a chance to settle into your own suit and really start to be like, wow, this is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. Look what I'm becoming. Look how I'm changing. That's an incredible confidence building. Now that didn't happen for me while I was going through my process. It happened to me after I achieved some things. But I agree with you. If you go and you look forward, past those seasons that you're mentioning, you could lose sight of what's really going on right in front of you, which could be revolutionary in your life and your development. So I think that if you can get your clients to see that, which is obviously you're good at, and they can, I mean that's a rewarding exchange between the two of you. That's great.
Yeah, because it's it's that I read that book years ago, wherever
The Secret.
well, that too, but I was referring to wherever you go, there you are. It's like we think everything's going to be solved when we hit that goal, when that's not the case.
Right.
I've been really, really, really like no money, broke, single mom, like didn't know where dinner was coming from. And now I'm a multi 6-figure earner, and I'm the same me. I'm different, but I still get sad. I still get lonely. I still get angry. My kids still annoy the crap out of me, So it's like, it's real. I've learned that it's cliche, but it is about enjoying the journey, and it's about who you become, because when you're there, wherever you're there is, you're there.
Well, a lot of what we call confidence or reaching this goal line, it's about feeling good about yourself, and it's about feeling content, and ways to get there is really about that process and that journey. I mean, once you have a certain amount of money, which I think it's 70, 80 grand, whatever that study is, after you can pay your basic bills and you can watch TV and you have a car, I mean, you can have money, and once you get rid of that initial stress, and then you start trying to pile more money on top of that, it doesn't necessarily give you exponential. I like to call happiness contentment. I don't necessarily call it happiness. I like it to be like, I'm not stressed out. I'm not worried. I'm not scared. I'm not fearful of this. I'm just here right now having this conversation with Jen.
Yes.
That to me that's nice. You know what I'm saying? And I'm necessarily, because I think when people say, are you happy all the time? They talk about it in the press. They talk about it on TV. Like, what the fuck is happiness? Like, you want to tell me what happiness is? Because there's a lot of different ways you can label happiness. But I think it's just not worrying, just not thinking about down the road or past me, but, right here with you. And I think I'm mentioning all this because it's not trying to steal your thunder, but I'm mentioning all this because, it seems like that's really about what your coaching is about, and that's very fresh, and that's unique, and that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And you use the word happiness, and I would also interchange that with success. I have learned that success also is different for everyone. Sometimes some people think success is having a lot of money. Some people think success is having a great, passionate marriage. Some people think, my definition of success has now become just simply having the choice to do what I want to do every day. And so for me, if I have that, I feel successful. In my book. And again, that's different for everyone. And so much of this journey, Jeff, I think is about for us to really take some time to figure out what is success to me, not what mom told me or dad told me or the media tells me or the Kardashians tell me, but to me. And then your journey is going to really start to unfold because you're living, as we call it, say in my world, like in alignment with what's true for you, you know?
Right.
So, and it's different for everyone. It's amazing. Not everyone wants to be on stage and have jets and everything. We think they do, but they don't.
Right. No, I think most people don't necessarily want those things. They might want a small fraction of those things, but I think, in listening to you, that, is really important. I think the hardest thing is whether someone wants to build a beautiful butterfly collection or someone wants to start, a mega electric car company. It's getting yourself to a place where you're calm enough and believe in yourself enough. And a lot of people don't start off like some people they'll grow into a business that they love because their family had it or they were exposed to it very early. But if you haven't been exposed to something like that, and you realize that, I'm a banker, but I want to be a butterfly collector. You know what I'm saying? That transition, even if it's not about money, just changing that complete path down a different road. And you talk about energy, that's a very hard thing for people to do, to just completely change what they're doing and do something else. You know what I'm saying? And I think, getting people to that point seems like what you do is, again, I think it's great. Tell me a little bit about, one or two of the success stories that you've had with people that you've coached. Give me an example of a woman that, obviously don't tell me her name or anything, what she does, but tell me something you're proud of. One of your your sculptures that you molded.
Well, okay. So one that comes to mind, a wonderful woman, a mom of 3, married, 20, almost 20 years, I think. And she is a salon owner, typically successful salon owner. But with the pandemic, she had to pivot like a lot of other people. So she wanted to build an online business, and we started working together. And just a little bit of context, she, again, let me see how much I'm going to share, but she wanted to make money online by promoting the business that she had started, a home-based business. And there was a lot of trauma there, Jeff, because here's the other thing, which I love that you talked about, like, it's hard. Like, this isn't for sissies, right? I'll just say that right now.
No way. Right.
So this amazing woman came from a large family, and there was a lot of trauma.
Right.
There was a lot of actually like sexual trauma and just things she was dealing with. And when you start this journey, not every time, but a lot of the times, our past dramas, we somehow have to face them. And so she was, even though it's like that has nothing to do with her business. Her business really required her to get out of her comfort zone, to start, coming out online, just like, doing things that made her uncomfortable. But it brought up all this stuff that she had buried from her childhood and from things that she just was trying to lock away. And so really a lot of what I did with her was we just had to help her navigate and process some of the emotions that she never dealt with that were affecting her business and her money inflow. That it's interesting, Jeff, because here's what we were talking about in the beginning. I could have given her all the strategies in the world, but what helped her triple her income and her business within, I think we did it in about 6 months, triple her income and be able to not go to her salon anymore, was working and healing her sexual trauma as a young woman. And so that's where I talk about, it's great. She did some stuff. She had some strategies. I had her do things every day, but really it was the healing of the past to then be able to create the future that she wanted. And people don't realize that oftentimes we have to face those ghosts in order to create something new.
Yeah, I mean, in order to build a foundation and a self-esteem and to feel good about yourself, you're gonna, I mean, in regards to what you're saying, you're gonna have to address the things that make you feel shitty about yourself. You definitely have to, you have to break yourself down. I was talking to one of my earlier guests was he's a professor up at a college, and he is an expert in death anxiety, and that a lot of our fears and catalysts that drive our behavior is in relation to our anxiety around death. And what he talked about a philosopher, I believe the philosopher's name was Kierkegaard, and one of the things that he said was, in order for us to have a relationship with our anxiety with death or our fear of death, we have to completely break ourselves down and reinvent ourselves in contrast to how we were raised and how we were built up from our childhood, which I mentioned that because to be able to face, even though it's a very subtle and very subconscious thing to be fearful of death, it's a very subtle and sometimes subconscious thing to think about how you were sexually manipulated as a child or mishandled, and how that relates to you are today. So you're doing some heavy, sort of therapy work in your counseling as well. So that's really cool. I mean, that's beyond just like the normal, you got to get up and you got to make eggs at 9 and, got to work at 5, all that stuff. I mean, you're for those that are going to listen and me talking to you, Jen, you're not just like, all right, you got to set up an IRA and then 15 years and a compounding interest, you're going to have this money. You're really doing some serious, like, why can't you get out of your car and go into that place and do that work, that workout, whatever it may be? You're figuring out like what the blocks are. And that's why, when you have all these self-help gurus, late at night, whoever they may be, and they tell all these stories, it's like all these people are home that are like walking wounded or just sitting in a chair. They're home wounded and they're watching TV or they're watching people with all these great things they've done. And no one's really like yourself, or they haven't reached out and found someone to really dig in to why they can't motivate and why they're procrastinating. I was a major procrastinator when I was younger, because I was always thinking about all these other things, and it took me a long time to get over it. So I think, I'm saying all these things to you because it's really poignant what you're saying. It's really hitting home with me. I think it's really interesting, and I think that's really productive coaching. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and again, back to like we had mentioned the law of attraction. What people don't realize is Dr. Wayne Dyer said it. The loved Wayne Dyer said it. You don't get what you want. We think, we write down $1 million, a mansion, and it'll just. You don't get what you want. You get what you focus on. And 90% of what we focus on, and we think it's a conscious thing, but it's actually our subconscious that is in charge of what we focus on. And I think they said like 90 to 95, maybe even more % of our subconscious is past repetition. It's the stuff from the past. It's the wounds. It's the broken heart at, 14 years old. It's the thing mom said to us when we were 5 years old that stuck with us and defined who we are today somehow. It's all those things that are actually driving. It's like it has the driver's wheel. So really, so much of this is about going into these subconscious, and whether that's by there's like hundreds of different ways you can do that, so many ways, but really we get what's in our subconscious. Really, we get what we focus on. And so much of this is about exactly what you said, going back and really, I can say, Jeff, get up and go to the gym every day at 5 a.m. But we have to get into, you already knew that before you hired me. So why aren't you doing it? That's what we need to go into, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, very, very poignant. I have a little 4.5-year-old boy, and I try and, answer his questions and sort of, I mean, I can't protect him completely. He's going to grow up and he's going to have it. He's going to be ensconced by some sort of emotional trauma, whether I'm the best dad in the world, but he came in the other day. He goes, I was hanging out with my friend and my girlfriend, and she called me stupid, and I was like, oh man, you're not stupid. It's just that she doesn't know what to say to you, and she likes you, so she's calling you stupid. She doesn't, and he goes, oh, okay. So, these, I mentioned that because people hear these things when they're younger, and, they stick with them. And if you're a young girl and someone says that you're fat or you're, look right, you're not wearing, the right dress. So there's all these different things that are going on. And it sounds like you really, understand that, and you figure out a way to really hone in to be productive, to give people the tools to, that's necessary for them to be productive. The other thing is do people have the intellect to get what you're saying? I mean, the reality of it is not everybody's going to understand what they need to be productive or pivot. Not everybody can do it, unfortunately. I don't mean to be negative, but you know what I'm saying? You gotta have a little bit of a life experience and a real strong desire. What was I mean, I'm listening to you. So you went through some crazy shit in your life. I can tell just by listening to you, because you know so much, and you're so self-reflective, and you've taken quite an inventory of yourself. So tell me about your pivot point. There's something happened,
Yeah. And it's funny what you just said, what you said, because you said it without, I don't know if you realize you said it, but it's like, you don't know if enough people will get this. What I have seen, Jeff, is that really what it takes is a complete and total breakdown. And it sucks to say, but it's like, you got to get to that point where you cannot go on any longer doing what you did. And
I gotta say one thing. I'm interrupting. I'm really sorry.
Please,
but
go.
I got to use my own experience for a second, because I was sitting in a job for 6 or 7 years before I started the business that I actually enjoy and got into the things that I really wanted to a little bit later in life. That's another thing. You can get into things later in life. You don't have to start something at 25 and be a billionaire. You can start it at 30, 35, 40. But I had to get so miserable, like getting in the shower where I was ready to cry, to want to be able, I can't do this anymore. And then you have to even go to a darker place to even figure out yourself, to rebuild yourself back up. All right, go ahead. I had to say that because because what you said was like masterful. It's very poignant and it's really important, because people feel so shitty and they get stuck in the shitty and like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. Bullshit. All right.
No.
Go ahead.
So I love that, because I have now trained myself that when I see, or someone comes to me and they're in total breakdown, not that I'm not compassionate, but I get excited for you, because I know that, and I'll get into a story if you like, but there has been a few major breakdowns in my life. Like you said, on my knees, help me get through this. I don't know how. I almost give up, like I surrender fully. I don't know what I'm doing. And what came next was always, maybe not the next day, maybe not even the next week, but at some point I looked back and said, if I wasn't there on my knees, I would never have been able to do this. So that part of our life, that breakdown, it's hard to hear when you're in it, but it is a blessing.
Well, it's a very lonely place to be in, man. And it's not like, I mean, I was always good at reaching out to my friends, and I always had some good friends. But if you don't have, if you don't have the ability to intellectually communicate on a high level or emotionally communicate on a high level, people, and you're alone in that, that's very, very scary, and it doesn't feel normal. And you're like, woe-is me, what's wrong with me? Why am I not like these people that I see all around me? Right. So I think it's really important to mention. I mean, I really like what you're saying. I really like what you do. I really think it's important to mention that the beginning of that process, the impotence to that process, and getting through and even meeting someone like you is a very lonely, very, very lonely on your own process. It takes a lot of, you have to be brave to push through.
Totally. And that's why a lot of self-help people, spiritual gurus, if you will, it has a term, the dark night of the soul. And because you have to, it is lonely, it's dark, and no matter how many friends you have, because I've got some good friends too, Jeff, but I was on my own in that space.
Right.
Much as they wanted to help me, it was in me, right? So yeah, I definitely think that that's it. It's not easy, and it's a blessing, because you get to the point where you can't. You can't keep doing what you're doing. I'll finish that thought. But I just had this conversation with my 16-year-old daughter the other day. She grew up with two parents who are very entrepreneurial, and she was just simply saying, without getting into too much detail there, but she was noticing the differences between her family. Her dad is an entrepreneur as well, and me, and some of her friends. And she was noticing how her friends don't necessarily have the same drive she does. They don't necessarily, like, their homes, and this is not any judgment, but they're comfortable. They have jobs, they have food on the table, they're just comfortable, and that's great, and that's fine. And she has seen us, her dad too, and me, and divorce and all this. We've been to a really hard place. She's seen us work our butt off, challenge ourselves every day, do the work, and rise to where we are now, and still have very big dreams beyond. But she said, it has made me have this drive that most of my 16-year-old friends don't really have right now, because she's seen the rise, she's seen the hard part, she's seen the difficulty and where we've come. And so I just share that because it really is a blessing. And the dark night of the soul, if we want to talk about the spiritual journey, is actually necessary. And I'm not saying to suffer in it, but I am saying, if you are in it, try to find ways to get support. And, what I would say is, take a journal and start mapping out, what do you want? It's a time to wipe yourself clean. We are in an age of where there's so much information, like, bombarded, that so many of us have no idea who we really are and what we're capable of. And I think that that time in our life when we're on our knees, or when things are just not comfortable or not easy, is a great time for us to turn it all off and to just spend some time. That could be days, that could be an hour, whatever it is, really redefining, who am I and what do I want? And because they're telling me what I need to do, they're telling me what a good mom is, what a good dad is, what a good this is, and it's time for me to define that for myself.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of, it's very poignant what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of ebbs and flows and subtleties between the lines of what you're saying, and defining what a person wants. I think when I first started my foray into other businesses, I was doing some things that I thought maybe people, how I wanted to perceive by different people, not necessarily what I wanted. And then when I figured out what I wanted and I did those things, and I think what you're trying to convey to your clients as well is, even whether you're making $1 million or you're making just enough money to survive and you're happy about that, that you start feeling good about yourself because you're doing the things that you want to do that feel good to you. And that builds up a foundation for self-esteem and self-worth, and just, feeling a little bit more relaxed. There's always the stressful days. Do I have enough money to pay these bills, pay my employees, or this or that? But there are days when you can just sit there and you can just breathe and just be like, you know what? I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm doing all right. I made some big changes and I'm feeling good about that. And I think that those are really, instead of the big fantastical wins, like I got to be a millionaire and I got to have this and I got to have a lot of those things are super unrealistic for the average person. But it's not, but it's not, the goals need to be realistic. I mean, but it's not unrealistic to say, I work in this job in this cubicle and I'd rather work in this job in this flower garden. There's nothing wrong with, a win like that, that's great. It doesn't have to be this freaking huge, super dynamic blasting rockets into space. It doesn't, that's a great thing, but I mean, it doesn't have to be that. They can just be what's manageable for you.
Right.
And
Totally.
I'm saying these things to you because I don't want to be like I'm redirecting the conversation. But I'm telling these things because I'm listening to you, and it's inciting things in me in a positive way. And I want to express, because I think it really ensconces what, surrounds what you're saying, which is interesting. And these little subtleties in the conversation are important for people to hear. So it's
totally. And what I hear what you're saying is just a great reminder to that, again, we live in a world where we flip on Instagram and everyone's beautiful, skinny, rich, everything's going great. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. It's not
my Instagram. Not my Instagram.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen it.
That shit's all real. That stuff. I'm kidding.
Great. Well, how refreshing, right? And I mean, I do it too. I mean, we do try to, I do, and this is something, if we wanted to go off in that area, but I do teach people to build their brand on social media, and to be able to have a message on social media. So I'm not saying you're going to come out like a hot mess, but what I am saying is, as consumers, somebody who's watching, we really have to remind ourselves that we're just seeing the highlights. We're seeing what people want us to see. We're not seeing, when we turn this off, my teen's gonna come in, I'm hungry, and like all that stuff. So that's the reality of today's world.
No, definitely. Did I take us away from your pivot? Like, what made you, I think we went on a tangent, and I didn't want to forget. I was like, where did this all?
My story.
What redirected your energy towards where we are right now?
Yes. Okay. So, like I said, I have a few actually times that were really like a come to Jesus moment for me. The one that I'll probably go with right now is after my divorce. So it's been 8 years or something like that. So, and co-parenting is a whole other journey, which has, I have learned so much from that, and it's been a blessing. It's grown me in ways that I didn't realize. But that's another story. But my divorce, long story short, a really good man, dealt with some mental health stuff, and he wasn't getting the help at that time. Now it's changed, but at that time, he wasn't getting the help that he needed to get. And I was a young mother. I had given, which has driven my passion now, I had given all the financial responsibility, all the finances over to my husband. And when I didn't feel like it was right for me to stay anymore, I had not a penny. I had 2 babies and nothing. And actually, I stayed longer than I probably wanted to, because I didn't have choice, which then, Jeff, leads me to a lot of the reason why I do what I do now, work with women in their businesses and to have a brand and have a voice. Because whether you're married, single, whatever, I think it's super important for everyone, but women especially, to have some financial independence. And that doesn't mean you can't share bank accounts. I'm not talking about that, but let's face it, money gives you choice often. And so I was in a place where I didn't have a choice. I mean, I had to stay. And then when I just couldn't take it, I had made the leap, and I have built from the ground up. I remember many nights when my kids were babies and I didn't eat dinner, and I was making them burritos and opened the can of beans, and I wasn't going to eat. I only had enough for them. But and I was actually a certified coach then, but I was really not getting much headway. I was, my kids were young. I was, after a divorce, emotionally, I was a mess. And what I did, Jeff, was when I would make those dinners, I remember this exactly. I would start to picture that I was creating a feast for my kids. Some people think I'm insane, but like I had dreamt of a day that I could have a feast in front of me, that I could have friends over for dinner and serve them. I would picture the napkins and the plates and the smell of the food and what I would serve and all that. And while I'm just making 2 burritos for my babies. And so why I share that is because people think in order to change, like they wait for the circumstance to change to make changes. And I'm all about it comes from within. So what happened is that I would started to do that and visualize and step into what it would be like to have an abundance of whatever it is I wanted. And clients started to come. Like people started to call and ask for my services, like money started to flow. And so again, that's why I took myself from, and it was a very internal process for me. I've never paid for ads. I've never, I don't have many of the fancy marketing funnels, but I did this inner work, and all of a sudden, like I would have a waiting list of clients. I couldn't keep up with it. And so anyway, that was just one of my friends. Yeah.
I don't know how I don't know how, I had to do that by my transition, my dark period was by myself, but to have like two little ones with you like that, my hat's off to you. It was scary. And, but I'm sure it's made you like a very, very strong person that you are today. And you're grateful that you got through that hardship. I have a little 4.5, he's going to be 5, and he's a little 4 3/4 now. He's going to be 5. I can't imagine having to do what I do every day and to take care of him. I mean, it takes a little village to take care of a kid. So the fact that you did that, but just hearing you talk and the way you talk to me, and then obviously the way you talk to other people, I could see how, people would be attracted to your energy and your service and wanting to talk to you because it's comforting. And you have a lot of great, a lot of experience. Do you share your experience with your own experience with your clients, or is that off limits?
Oh no, gosh, I definitely do. And that's part of, a lot of my message is to actually be able to be authentically you online. I am not, what you see is what you get. And that doesn't mean I divulge all my secrets online, but I definitely talk to women who want to create something to share their story, because yes, it was incredibly hard, Jeff, but now I can relate to the mom who is totally starting over and has no idea what she's doing, but has a vision of something bigger, that has like, she knows she's not just here to survive. Like just surviving is so hard. Like, I don't think people realize like just getting through the day is so hard that to like, to just, and it's exhausting. It's hard.
Right.
And so if I can help a lot, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you say a lot of things that, make me think of things that are really important that people are going to be listening to this. So, we're always so involved in our own little world, and people that are like, do very, very well or very wealthy, or people that aren't doing well, no one really has actual glimpses so much into what's going on into each other's life. Everybody thinks the grass is greener. And as you said, life is difficult even when things are going well. So when they're not going well, but there are millions of people that are struggling and millions of people that are having a very, very hard time. So when people can get through this and pass through this point that you're talking about, we should be grateful that, even though life is hard, we've found some things to, bring us some of this contentment. And the other thing that I want to say, and this is all stimulated by what you're saying to me, is that when people are having an intimate dialogue, like you have an intimate dialogue with your clients, the fact that you share your experience, people want a reflection. You can't have a reflection by like, you got to do this, and I'm successful and I'm great. Listen, man, it was like, I was in my shower. I was crying this day. I mean, it was bad. Like, they need to hear these things, even from the people that are giving them experience and advice. They need some realistic reflection. And so I thought that was great that you do that and you share that. I think that like that right there is worth the money,
Yeah.
It's, the dysfunctional therapist.
Right. And yeah, and that's what I know for me, and it sounds like you too. I mean, I am attracted to the leaders and to the teachers and the coaches or whatever it is that are transparent, that have a story, that are, that say, listen, I came from this and built this. To me, that's inspiring. It's the people that go out and just flashing this and flashing that. That does nothing for me.
Right.
know?
People are really, that's a thing also with friendships. It's building real friendships bases off of real dialogue and sharing real, not just talking about the TV program or the movie or, their horoscope or whatever it may be, but, sharing real reflection of each other's lives and real hardships and wishes and desires and challenges. And I think it's part of not everybody wants to share their friends because you never want to have dinner with them because it would be like, freaking dysfunctional, depressing, like over, your burrito. But,
right.
I think, if you're going to hire someone and they're willing to share that, I would recommend you, talking to you for this hour right now, I would recommend you in a heartbeat, to somebody. I'm looking for a life coach. I'm like, well, this girl in California, here's her number.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I totally. What does you say your brain is wired to show you more of what you believe? Want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So basically we all have, and you might have heard of it, but it's called the RAS, the reticular activating system. So I'm sure, there was a time in my life where I've changed a little bit because I drove one from, I don't know, Santa Cruz to LA, and it was a pain in the ass. But at one point I wanted a Tesla. Okay. And so when I wanted this Tesla, what happened? All of a sudden I saw Teslas everywhere. Teslas all over the place. And I think all of us can relate to this, right? If you want something suddenly, or something like gets your attention, suddenly you see it everywhere, right? So what we don't realize is our brain is wired for this, the reticular activating system. And most people are not aware of it. I wasn't for a very long time. That we focus on what's not working. We focus on what's hard. We focus on the breakdown. We focus on the debt or the lack or the pain in the butt wife or kids or whatever. So we focus on that. So our RAS, our reticular activating system in our brain, is wired to show us more of that. That's why if you go out and you had you're like, the world is hard, the world is a terrible place, everyone's so messed up, you're gonna go out and see more of that. It's law. That's what, if you're feeling broke, that's why it goes back to my story. I realized if I was feeling like a broke single mom with nothing, I would get more of a broke single mom. So I had to literally train my brain to start to see abundance, to start to see peace, to start to experience wealth and peace and ease before it came. Here's the thing, is most people are waiting for their life to change. I will tell you, the change starts in here. So rewiring your brain, and this is not easy. It's exactly what you were saying, Jeff. Like, this is not for the faint of heart. This is about, like, you look at a master in anything, a ninja warrior. They have honed their craft in hours and hours and hours of training, right? And so we expect, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to be all good. No, we're talking about months and weeks and days of like, Jen, I'm doing it again. I'm focusing on the lack, okay. And I had to pivot, and and what does this look like? This is like when I remember these days, if I had $100 bill and I had $50 in my account, I would go to, I can't pay this, like, But I had to take myself and say, okay, I'm going to need $20 for dinner. I'm going to need $5 for this. I have $15 to put towards the bill. I send it in, I pay it, I call the bank if I need to, tell them I'm having a hardship, and then
Right.
I carry on with my life. And I carry on with like I'm not in this because that's what I did for so long. And when you're in this, you get more of that. So that was not easy, Jeff. That was not like I was like,
No, I know,
I
I
need
know.
money, but
Yeah, I know, I
you
know.
know,
I mean,
sometimes you can have it, right?
I get it. And, it's being in those experiences enough times to be able to build the confidence, and you see them over and over again. Sometimes people, there's no action because they don't want to face those hardships. And when they do face the hardships, they shut down and they stop and they don't do it anymore. And they're done because it's just too hard. I'd rather just, play a video game or just
Right.
sit home or stay at my job. But it's really, really hard work to pre-program those waves. And some of the things you're talking about is about being quantum. It's about putting the intention on things that are in your mind and observable. Quantum, what the scientists say about quantum mechanics is that, until you put your intention and your observance on something that you're intended, that you want or you can see, it's not real. So the self-visualization can help create, and the self-visualization can help drive some new behavior that can lead to some permanence in the way you handle yourself. And
Yeah.
like, again, just to reiterate how freaking hard that is. It's like climbing Mount Everest, but people can do it. They really can.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
totally
because what
can
you're
do it.
saying, like with that example I gave, I had to face the shame I had, the guilt I had, the
Mm,
how I felt like a failure as a mother, as a woman, like all my, my parents telling me I wasn't smart enough or I'd be a good mother, but probably not a good businesswoman. Like I had to unpack all of that to actually get to the place where I would just go, okay, what are the facts? The facts are right now I have $100. I need to pay 50 to this. Da, da, da. Okay, do it, do it, do it. Move on. Like do the best, visualize more, visualize abundance. And that's hard to do when you've got zero money in the bank. But
yeah. I mean, listen, you talk to some of the most successful business people. I mean, even when I was starting my businesses and going through the transformation, but there's so many people that have changed their lives that have those $100 in the bank or negative bank account, or they have an abundance of money. And then like 3 months later, they have no money. I mean, I've had like shitloads of money and then like no money and then shitloads of money and then, no money through my entrepreneurial,
yeah,
endeavors. But, I think, everything you're saying is just, it's spot on. I think we're having a great conversation about what you do and how you do it and how you implement it and how you help people. And that's really important, to have the dialogue specifically about the service. You mentioned something about being a parent. And, one of my greatest fears is, being a good parent and not failing. Care to because your children are older than mine and you look like you're
yeah.
super young. I don't know, you have a 16-year-old, you said. I don't want to know how
I
old
do.
you are, but you look super young. So I just want to let you
Oh,
know
you're
that.
so sweet. Thank you so much. I have a
Yeah.
16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. And so I definitely can relate to what you're saying. And especially, we haven't talked about this, Jeff, but I just feel like parents in 2021, like no parents have ever dealt with what we're dealing with right now. So it's
Yeah.
like on another level parenting right
It's
now.
crazy. It's a before I became a parent, I was scared to become a parent. That's
Sure.
one of the reasons why I became a parent later in life. I was also, not completely trustworthy of myself. Like through this process, I needed to get through this process we're talking about
Yeah.
first before, and also finding someone that I trusted, that I thought would be a great mom and a great partner. And even if you have all those things, some people will say to me, "When are you having a second kid?" I'm like, I'm not having a second kid. I have one, and that's as much as I'm emotionally capable of handling.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
I mean, and so my point is, people that have 2 and 3 kids, man. I mean, some people are just built. They're like family machines. They want it. They love it. I want a kid too, but like if you threw another kid in the mix right now, like there'd be smoke coming out of my freaking ears in multiple directions. I couldn't handle it. I wouldn't be able to
I
handle it.
know. I know. It's so true. It's so true. And what I could, I mean, we can maybe have another conversation at some point about parenting, because we could go on and on about that. But what I will say, Jeff, is that parenting has taught me so many things. And one of which is that oftentimes, and this is hard for parents to hear, but oftentimes our children are actually a reflection of us. So, like when my kids are doing their thing, what I realize is the times that I get really triggered it's about my insecurity and my lack of, just able to handle the situation or whatever it is. So yeah, parenting is just, especially in today's day and age, it's so much about letting go and allowing them to be who they are, which might be very different than we intended them to be. But
right. No, you're right. I'm trying to teach him the letters now. And he's good on the numbers. He's not good on letters. And I started pushing him because I would say that, the phonetic sounds and what is that? And he couldn't get it. And then I was like, what are you doing, dude? He's not your rocket scientist today. Let him be. When he's ready, he's going to learn the letters. Stop putting that insecurity, like my kid's going to fall behind in class and he's going to be a loser, and that was me. It had nothing to do with him. And that could negatively affect his family. He'll have to come to you in 15 years. My father totally screwed me up. He screamed at me because I didn't know the letters. What is wrong with him? And now I can't start my Taekwondo studio. What is wrong with me?
Right? Well, he won't, because you have the awareness to actually, okay, like I'll pull back a little bit and maybe try it another day or a different way. And I think that's what parenting is a lot. It's about jumping in and doing the best we can, but also knowing when to, like, okay, it's time. And here's one thing I'll say before, I know we're kind of, it's a lot of time, but the hardest thing for me, Jeff, is still, but I've had to learn, is to allow my children to, what you were saying, to fail, like to actually let them fall on their face. I thought for so many years my job was to save them. And of course, when they're young, our job is to keep them safe. But I was doing it to the point where it wasn't healthy for them or me, and it was burning me. And it was holding them back and scaring them from the world and, from being in the world and fully showing up. And so it's been really interesting, dance, having my kids be teenagers now and allowing them to make mistakes, allowing them to mess up. Like that's been challenging.
I get it, but you totally understand it. So where can people find you and your services, and how can they get in touch with you? Do you have a website or?
Yeah, thank you. I do. I have a website that's under construction right now, should be done soon, but it's JennAcosta.com, and I can give it to you guys to put it in the show notes or whatever. And
we're totally gonna promote it. And I know that down the line we're probably gonna have a part 2 conversation, because I think there's a lot more that you and I connect on that we could talk, that I think would be influential or positive for people to hear. But I tell you, if I was in a situation where I needed a coach, I would totally hire you. I mean, I talk to people, sometimes I get bored, or I really don't believe in their product or what they're saying, but I really believe in what you're saying. I really like what you're saying. I think we're, some of the things that, happened in my life are very relatable and strike a chord in regards to what you said. And I think anybody that, needed some of your services would be very fortunate to meet you and to conduct business with you. I think it's awesome. And I thank you so much for your time today. It was a very enjoyable conversation for me. Thank you.